Yo, what's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome into the Bulls Report. I am your host, Patrick Siepman. And coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about Igor Demen, as apparently reports are coming out that the Bulls are very, very high on the BYU point guard. I have a lot of thoughts on this. Why it doesn't make sense at all, but why also, if this offseason plays out in a certain way, where him at number 12 could be a sneaky good pick for the Bulls. But before we dive into it, if you guys could help us reach 12,000 subscribers here on the channel. We're closing in, and we are very, very close. We just need 123 more of you guys to hit that subscribe button. So if you guys have not already and want to stay up to date around the latest on your Chicago Bulls, hit that subscribe button today and join our Bulls Report family. So this new report was coming in from Casey Johnson of NBC Sports Chicago, saying the Bulls are targeting Igor Demen at pick 12 of the 2025 NBA draft. Now, Igor Demen, we'll dive into, who he is as a player and, his pros, his cons on the tail half of today's show. But immediately I'll get this off my chest. Igor Demen is very, very similar to Josh Giddey. Honestly, his pro comp, if I had to call it, it is Josh Giddey, and I can't really think of a second one that even compares. So just on paper, this literally makes zero sense whatsoever from the Chicago Bulls, because I can't see a world where Giddy and Demen can be on the floor at the same time. And even if you make the argument where it's like, all right, well, Demen can lead the second unit, well, where does that leave a guy like Lonzo, Trey Jones, Ayo Dosunmu? Like, where does that leave those guys in this rotation? Now, my thoughts on, this making no sense has nothing to do with Demen as a player. I actually love him as a prospect. If the Bulls didn't have Josh Giddey and had a need for a point guard, I would probably be saying Igor Demen is my number one draft target for the Bulls. Now, the situation is, what if you decide to pull off a sign and trade with Josh Giddey, where I think also this is very, very unlikely. The Bulls traded Alex Caruso for him. Arturas, he has had really no successful big-time moves, being the Bulls' president of basketball operations. But the one thing you can kind of hang his hat on is, all right, I did get a young, up-and-coming player in Josh Giddey for a guy like Caruso. So would he be willing to just move off Giddey? I doubt it. And plus, we did see Giddy at the second half of the year really take some big strides in his game, and specifically the three-point shot. He was actually leading the NBA in three-point percentage post-All-Star break, taking like 5 threes a game, which is great, but almost averaging a 20-point triple-double, 50% from the field. I actually thought defensively he was, he at least showed some fight on that side of the floor during the second half of the year. But, the question becomes, like, when the Bulls are eventually, or hopefully, hosting that Larry O'Brien trophy, like, is Josh Giddey the point guard? And can you build around Josh Giddey? Like, what type of team could you, or do you need around him at the one to have you competing for championships? And I think the Indiana Pacers could be the kind of the most optimistic view I could take of Josh Giddey at the one. So could it be a poor man's Halliburton? Like, maybe you get like a Pascal Siakam at the four, and maybe Modest Buzelis could turn into be that. But then also you would need at the five like a player just like Miles Turner, who can stretch the floor, who's an elite shooter, but he can also protect the rim, and then get some other guards when Giddy's off the floor, have an Andrew Nembhard come in, have a TJ McConnell come in. Like, I do think there is a path there, but also in terms of a sign and trade, it just depends on the haul you could potentially get for Josh Giddey. Like, if a team's willing to throw you 2 future first-round picks, I think you at least got to consider it. But I also think that's pretty unlikely. Maybe it's like a pick and a player for a sign and trade for Giddey, but I honestly think the Bulls front office, they're probably viewing this Indiana Pacers run right now as like, okay, that's what we're going to do. We're going to replicate that. We're going to get this point guard who is obviously a bigger frame like Giddey and Halliburton, who's going to push the pace, make the right reads over and over again. I don't know if I agree with that, but just knowing how the Bulls front office has operated the past couple of years, they're probably viewing the Pacers as more of a reason for them not to tank and for them to even go more on this kind of core we have now in Chicago. But I ask you guys this. Let's have some fun on today's show. In terms of a 2K rating for a guy, Josh Giddey, what do you guys think it should be? Scale it 1 through 99. I think I got to give Giddey like an 84, 85 overall. Maybe I'm being a little too optimistic on that, but I'll probably give Giddey an 84 overall. But you guys let me know. Give Josh Giddey a 2K rating down below in the comments section. Now, coming up next, we're going to dive into who Igor Demen is as a prospect and, if the Bulls do perform a sign and trade, why I would be actually huge on the Bulls drafting the BYU point guard. We'll talk about that here in a second. But before we do so, got to tell you guys about today's presenting sponsor, and that is PrizePicks. Now, if you guys download the PrizePicks app today and plug in promo code CLNS, you guys will get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Now, the basketball playoffs are here, and cash in on the basketball playoffs with PrizePicks. Don't miss your last chance to add your favorite players from on the court to your PrizePicks lineup. Whether it's points, rebounds, assists, take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today. And if you guys are asking yourself, what exactly is PrizePicks? Well, it's the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. Millions of members, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. So if you guys want to give them a look, download the app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. But shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's show. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, let's talk about Demen here a little more in depth. So, my pro comp for him is Josh Giddey at his core. A playmaking, bigger size point guard who does struggle to shoot the three-point ball, very similar to how we viewed Josh Giddey when he was entering the NBA draft. And Demen this past year at BYU, solid production. They were a Sweet 16 team, and, he was the kind of the main force and the main engine of that BYU offense, averaging 10.5 points a game. 5.5 assists, was able to hit the glass pretty well, 3.9 boards a night, and also 1.2 steals, and shooting, a little below average, but 41% from the deck. And, when you watch his game, he has great vision. Like, he just sees over the top of the defense very, very well. Especially when teams were collapsing on him in the pick and roll, he was able to see the weak side option very easily, kicking it over. Defenders get his, team a wide open 3 in the corner, but some concerns I would have for Demen kind of starts with him scoring off the dribble. I do think he struggles just creating his own jump shot where, if you take I think Demen's, dream pro comp would be a guy like Tyrese Halliburton, very similar to how we view Giddy. But at least Halliburton has him off the dribble game. I mean, that step back 3 hit against Cleveland was a good example of that. He can just shake you, get you on your heels a little bit, get to that step back, and also Halliburton has a pull-up jumper. Have not seen that from Demen just yet, but he's also a young prospect that could be developed very, very shortly here, but he is an inconsistent shooter. And honestly, how he shot at the combine, I don't really have a problem with this. He's a streaky guy. There are some games where he would go 4 of 7 from 3. Then he'll also have a game where he'll go 1 of 3, and he can barely hit rim. Very similar to Josh Giddey. But again, some of these pros, he is a great playmaker, especially when teams are doubling him. He can just find that soft spot, find those little creases, get to the rim, set up easy shots for other players. So, he's a fantastic playmaker, and I do think with a guy like, Modest Bazelis running the wing, if Demen can just keep on pushing that ball up the floor, I think that's a great part of his game as well. So, no doubt, great playmaker, and also just his vision is fantastic. He can see a player that is going to get open, it almost feels like a couple of seconds before where, maybe a guy's on him, but he's got the defender on his hip, and he can kind of look him off, kick it to the corner, wide open 3. I mean, when I was watching some of his tape before we filmed this, so BYU left. I mean, it felt like the first 5 minutes of this highlight tape I was watching of just him playmaking, they left so many assists on the table for him. So he has the great vision, great playmaker. He's also got really good size. And, a big reason why I am a fan of Josh Giddey is because even though he is a negative defender still at this point of his career, just still having a 6'8" point guard, where if you would put a 6'8" wing next to him, take the Knicks for example, if you had Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby next to Josh Giddey, you wouldn't really feel his lapses defensively. You would actually just feel like a massive, massive basketball team in the backcourt. But so at the end of the day, I can't see a world where Demen and Giddey can play together. If Giddey is still on the team and they sign him to a 3-year, $120 million deal this off, or not 120, $90 million deal this offseason, I cannot see a world where the Bulls draft him at number 12. So I thought this was interesting that this report was coming out. I don't know if that's reading the tea leaves here where it's maybe the Bulls will entertain a sign and trade for Giddey, or if a team offers them $40 million, maybe the Bulls are hey, we just got to let him walk and we could just replace Giddey right away, and even more shift towards the youth movement, getting younger. But we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But what say you here? Who do you want the Bulls to draft? I'm still a big fan of Derek Queen. Malwatch would obviously be my dream guy. But even like Rasheer Fleming, I'm a fan of his game. But, hey, you guys let me know. What say you? Who do you want the Bulls to draft? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. We'll see you all next time. As always, go Bulls.